Welcome to the Perspectives in STEM podcast, the podcast from Teach STEM Global, where we spotlight the people, ideas, and stories shaping the future of STEM and STEM education in a movement to bring STEM to every child everywhere. I am Dr. Kimberly West, Teach STEM Global's founder and president, and together we're shaping what's possible. There's some conversations you have with people, and there's some conversations you just feel like when you meet somebody, you know them instantly. And I promise you that this is going to be one of those conversations today. And I'm pretty sure that when you walk away and from listening to this, you'll be like, yeah, I can do more and I want to do more. So let me introduce you to our speaker. Chioma Aso is an engineer, author, and changemaker on a mission to close the gender gap in STEM. She's the founder of STEAM Divas, where she empowers young women by blending STEM with the arts. I meant to ask you this, it's Polymatrovix, correct?
It's Polymatrix. It's a combination
Polymatric.
of poly, math, and mavericks.
Okay, above my pay grade, y'all. Engineering, no. Helping robotics and hardware companies go from prototype to production. With a background spanning space, gaming, and manufacturing, Chioma is redefining how the next generation of women leads in tech. So, Chioma, welcome to the Perspectives in STEM podcast. I'm so excited to speak with you today.
Well, thank you for having me.
I don't think I think you can tell by the smile on my face. I'm like, I am just in love already. Um, so again, thank you for joining us. Can you introduce yourself and tell our audience a little about your background and the work that you do?
Yeah, thank you for having me once again. I think you did a fantastic job of introducing me.
Thank you.
So my name is Chioma Aso, like she said, and I have been in this industry over 15 years. My background is like she mentioned, I've been gaming, I've been in aerospace, I've been in manufacturing, and I have moved all of that into robotics because at the end of the day, I was building automated systems. I've been leading in those roles. And then I have this calling, which is what I call my goal to increase women in STEM. And I have been working through this using STEAMDivas. And the one thing I would say about me is that I'm strongly open to changes, and I'm strongly leaning in combining two things that people think don't work well. So also in my company where we help companies to scale from prototype to production without a structural collapse, we're combining the rigors of aerospace with the flexibility and the speed of software iteration, which is a combination of all of my skills coming together to build that.
I Wow. And so thinking about all of that, what you just said, and that inspiration had to come from somewhere, right? Or some experiences that you have. Who were some of the people or experiences that influenced your journey?
I have been influenced by a lot of people, but I think one of the key people I would say is my mom. My mom is one of those women that have been an outside of the box thinker. The way that she raised us was she did not limit us to anything. Being in STEM typically was not a career path that most women go into. So growing up, my mom always tell us like whatever you want to do, she would just tell you. So right from growing up, she already told me that I was going to be an engineer, and I saw her making waves and making changes in places that typically a woman would not be in. And so she was one person that has inspired me with doing the impossible in things that typically people expect me not to do the impossible in. But then again, when it comes to bringing more women into STEM, I think I was inspired by, working in industries where it was just mostly male dominated. And then I found out that, I thought that if I have more women within the spaces, that I would have more fun doing this. And then there were some skills that with the women that I've met throughout my journey that are also in STEM that I felt were missing whenever we in this environment where it's mostly male dominated. And so I thought I'll fix this problem. And and that's where
I love
that's
it.
how Steve Divas started.
I love it. First of all, shout out to your mother. Just like I'm going to shout out my own mom because she's going to listen to this. And so the power of moms, right? They have this
Yeah.
ability to see into their children and kind
Yes.
of put them on the right path. Yeah. So I love that. I love that. So can you tell us a little bit more about Steam Divas and the work that you do with
Yeah.
Steam Divas?
Yeah. Steam Divas is a nonprofit. It's focused on bringing women who typically don't, or girls, who
Hmm.
typically don't think STEM is for them, and introducing them in to STEM in a way that is not usual. So one of the key ways that we've done that is that we're harnessing the power of arts and finding the things that girls love and then including STEM within it. So I like to think about us like we are the gateway drug into STEM. We get you in with something you're passionate about, and then you find out that maybe STEM really is for you. And I think one of the things I would like to introduce is the idea that STEM is not fixed within the box of what people actually think that STEM is supposed to be. STEM
Hmm.
can be built in whatever environment. So I like to say you can take STEM into art or art into STEM. We don't care as long as you're STEMing. So we are not like expecting everyone who goes through our program to become an engineer or a doctor or anything, but we want them to be wherever they are to understand that they can introduce STEM into it and make changes. So some of our programs that we do are things like designing hairstyles with robotics or learning makeup with about learning chemistry through makeup or learning AI through story writing. So as you can tell, there is the creativity is the core of what we're pushing, but then we introduce the STEM section into it. So the girls typically are not the ones who think the STEM is for them. We do have some of those sometimes, but at the end of the day, we have a wider range of women and girls who join us in what we're doing.
Okay, I'm just my own curiosity. Tell me more about the robotics with the hair. Like, what are you doing with that?
So we're looking at the future of hairstyling.
Okay, listen.
Well, actually, one thing I like to do with the girls is I like them to come up with their own creativity so that they can have
Yeah.
ownership around their design. So one of the things that I did was we taught them how to use servo motors. We taught them how to use LEDs. Taught them the basic around that, and then we provided the tools, hairstyling, mannequin, and tools that are used to style hair, and we told them to design the hair the way that they want to. And you'll be shocked how creative these kids are. I go there to learn from them, to be honest. And
Mm.
I had a girl make a hair that was like a cuckoo clock. I had one make the hair that could spin. I had, one do all kinds of things. I do have videos of this online on our YouTube
Yeah.
channel, and you can see them giving a presentation around the concept of their design. So you know that they put in a lot of thought behind it. So what I did was instead of them getting bogged down with too many details about, what the schematic looks like and all of that. I just wrap this up into some easy to learn piece and show them like, okay, this is how you get LEDs on. And they start asking you some deep scientific questions. And so I start deep diving based on their areas of interest. So you find out that you open up doors for them to look into STEM more ways than just coming and say, hey, let me show you what the servo motor is and all of that stuff. I tell them you can use this to build something you like. And because of they like what they're building, their curiosity expands even more around things like STEM.
Yeah, I love that because yeah, you just give them the resources and say go and let
Yeah.
them be as creative and innovative as their minds will allow them to be. I love that. I would like to do that. I'm like, wait a minute. So as the whole time you're talking, I'm going, what could I do? So I really like that. So it was STEAM. We often talk about STEM, right? But you all are STEAM divas and you
Mhm.
combine STEM with the arts.
Yes.
So Why do you think that creativity is such an important component of innovation and problem solving?
I think that engineers, any kind of engineering, anything you're doing, I'm an engineer actually, is creative work. If you're trying to be innovative, you have to build something that doesn't exist, using
Yeah.
something that does exist, putting it together. And so the idea that, I personally, I'm very anti-STEM and anti-arts. I just don't like the idea that those things are split apart. I think
Yeah.
there might be some historical context behind that. I have my own conspiracy theory behind that. But I do think that those two things actually go together. I can't even imagine us just using one half of our brain, like I'm just going to be on just arts. I mean, every single thing you do has STEM in it and has arts in it. So I feel like by combining both, I'm getting people to be well-rounded because you cannot innovate nothing if you're not
Yep.
creative.
Yeah.
And then outside of innovation, problem solving, which is the core of all STEM, requires
Mhm.
somebody to be creative to be able to solve that. So we're looking at telling people to just walk without having legs or by telling them to pick one or the other. So that's why it's very important for me that I allow people to be creative because STEM is an innovative space.
I liked what you said, anti-STEM, anti-arts. I like that. And and I think about that as a science educator. I think about how in education we put content material in these silos, right? This is
Hmm.
math, this is science, this is arts, whatever. But you're right, it all works together. And so we
Yeah.
have to find a way, even in the classroom, if we want to, further encourage our students to explore
Hmm.
and engage in STEM, to put those all that stuff together. That right, you don't go walk outside and say today is Monday, it's a math day. Everything
Hmm.
all works together. And so I
Yeah.
need to start modeling that for them in the
Hmm.
classroom. I love that. What are thinking about young girls, and I know you said there's some young ladies who maybe think that STEM isn't for them. What barriers do you think are continuing to prevent young ladies from and women from entering STEM and STEM fields? And then what can we do to remove those barriers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that one of the things that I've found out is there is a there is a culture behind what STEM is supposed to be. Um, I'm kind of flamboyant, and I'm Nigerian. Our colors are loud, and things like that. And I know sometimes within STEM spaces, I stand out in the sense that I don't belong there.
Mm,
And so imagine where we're going into areas and they're telling us we need to be a look like that, right? And when young girls get to a certain age, the people that they see that represents them are not the people that they want to emulate. Let's be frank, young kids
yeah.
have their thing that when you're older, you just realize they're silly, right? But when
Hmm.
they're young, they want to look a certain way, they want to be a certain way. And culturally, if the proponents of what they're showing you, like these are the forefathers of or foremothers of what's leading this part, is not something that you find interesting or that they don't look like how you want them to look, you start finding that that also can create some form of barriers. Then there's the subliminal messages like, oh, I don't do math because that makes you
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
stuff like that. You don't, the that this is how you're supposed to look when you're a nerd. So I don't want to be called a nerd. And so you start seeing a lot of young girls try to hide, being smart, being exposed to things that are too technical. And then there's the other part, like when you get into these places, you're the only girl and you're in this environment where just because you're a scientist does not mean you stop being a woman. And
Right.
and and then you're in this environment where they're mostly guys and they're trying to eradicate all your feminine area. Look at it like a
Hmm.
weakness, look at it like a problem, and no rules or regulations are put around ways to protect you to be yourself 100%. So now we're creating environments that are not conducive
Right.
for young girls to grow in this environment. So someone as grown as me, I can show up somewhere and and you hear comments like, I don't know where you find the time to do your makeup. I'm like, I'm just efficient with managing my time.
Right. I
I'm
didn't know it was that
efficient.
serious. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm efficient in managing my time. I can do the job and I can also, put on makeup and show up the way I want to show up because this is something I'm comfortable with. But then you find out that if you're not someone who has that kind of mindset where you're hearing those kind of things, you now say, oh, maybe I have to be this way to belong. Those are subliminal messages, right? And I also have given some bad advice at some point in time when I had mentees and I'll tell them deepen your voice, so they will hear you more like a guy. And it's a telling the men to learn how to listen to women's voice because some women have a way of telling stuff around stories. It's
yes.
not always cut and dry, and that's beautiful too. So when you think about all of those things where the strengths that women are bringing into STEM are viewed as problematic, you're already discouraging the girls from wanting to be part of something because when they go in those environments, they don't feel like themselves, which is part of the reason why I'm always like I want it to be female leading. I encourage anybody to join us, but most of the things I always try to center around girls because I feel like when you go into that environment and they're mostly girls, you feel a little bit more relaxed. The girls feel a little bit more relaxed, and
Yeah.
when the boys come there, they start learning how the girls how to operate within girls and even maybe respect them, with the way that they do things, which might be
Hmm.
significantly different from what the way they've learned how to do things. And then one of the biggest things that I feel like is even problematic is the pipeline is leaking. So after we finally get those young girls through STEM into
Hmm.
the job force, the environment is even less conducive for them.
Yeah.
So you start seeing a lot of women start out and then they're like, I'm just gonna leave because this environment does not support my rights to have kids. Because they're like,
Yeah.
well, hey, Tommy is coming into work. Why you, wanting to take the
Right.
baby to work? I mean, these are things I've heard before. Like, why
Yeah.
you're always the one taking the keys to the doctor? Things like that, right? And so most times mothers are in situations where they're forced to pick between, their job or,
Yeah.
and when you're in an environment where there's a lot of women, sometimes it's great, because you understand she has had a baby. But when you're in an environment with a lot of men, they have wives who probably don't have any of the, maybe they don't work or they don't have to deal with some of this. Then the expectation is like, yeah, both of you are working on the same level. Why are you not,
Right.
and then you start
Exactly.
seeing things like where the person's salary gets affected, their respect gets affected. So women just jump out of it because it's not really worth the stress. So those are two things I can categorically say from my own experience.
Yeah.
Like, that causes a lot of women not to remain in STEM.
Yeah, and that's sad because women, as you mentioned, we have that kind of special gift about us, right? Like that
Hmm.
we see things a little bit differently, and we have a
Yeah.
different gift that we add to the world. And so the fact that sometimes we get pushed out of it is very discouraging, especially you
Yeah.
worked hard, you've gone to school, you know all the things,
Hmm.
and you just yeah, I want us to continue to have like conversations where we can continue to not only get you in, as you were saying, but like
Mm.
support you along the way,
Yeah.
to encourage you to continue to further your career. I want to ask you a little bit about your engineering company. Um, and I'm gonna get the name wrong again. Polymatrix. No, you tell me if I'm wrong. I'm okay if
It's
I'm wrong.
Polymatrics. I was trying to be
Polymatrix.
cute. Now I kind of made a hard name.
No, it's just hard for me. I couldn't
It's
get my
like
mouth to work
polymath and
today.
mavericks. So you just say like polymavericks. Like it's like thinking about like
Polymatrix.
polymavericks. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So I think it's just me. I think it's just me. I'm just, but you have started your own engineering company.
Mhm.
What motivated you to start that? Because I love that. You saw something out there and said, I need to do something about that.
Yeah. Polymavericks is what we do is a combination of all of my skill sets. I have my skill sets are very unique, and the reason why is because I'm one of those kind of people that do not mind spreading myself across different things and learning different things, and then finding a way to combine them. And over time, um, I've gathered this set of skill sets that's pretty unique, and now we are building robotics or building new products. I started noticing that, there's some product that come out or some robots come out. You're really excited about the prototype, and you can't wait for it to get to market so you can buy one. Something you need. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's
Hmm.
fulfilling the need. And I started noticing that majority of the times those products do not actually get to production. I never get
Mm.
around. Yeah, I don't. If you think about it, you've probably seen a product, maybe like a demo somewhere, and it looks
Yeah.
really great, and you're like, yeah, I can't wait for this to come on. And sometimes you hear people say, oh, in the future the robot will be flying, the robot will be doing all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff because they saw a demo, but and then when you look back, like, where are we now? It's like, oh, we never made it. That never came out.
Mm.
Now we thought by now we'll be doing flying cars, but
Yeah.
now we're not there. It's
Exactly.
all
Yeah.
because of the fact that most times those products, there's a layer of them existing, but they never scale into production. So I was walking around like most times when I'm talking with my friends or people, or maybe discussing on forums or in groups, I'll be giving help. I'll be like, why didn't you guys think about this? Or why didn't this happen?
Mm.
And then I was like, well, I can actually do this, and help people scale so that I can see what I like. So there's a bit of selfish side to
Yes.
it.
It's
And the
okay.
reason why I'm able to do such a good job with scaling is because I've worked years in manufacturing, and I've worked in aerospace, which is like a robot and electronics area, and I've worked in gaming where I'm able to like be in high gaming engine, high software iteration area. So I've learned how to combine all of those. So
Yeah.
in my thinking, I was like, well, let me figure out what it takes, for I built so many products. I worked in contract
Yeah.
manufacturing for a while, worked in OEM. So let me see what it takes for us to scale. Like, what are the key things? And so I came up with this five pillars, proprietary five pillars that identify the scale. For you to make sure that your product is able to scale, you have to make sure those five pillars are standing real well, which was like architecture, sim to real, any form of simulation, validation and verification, manufacturing and supply chain, and also one thing I know most people don't think about is how the model of how the company works. Like, and that came out
Yeah.
of my own leadership skill. I did study a lot of leadership on how to get people from point A to point B. I even wrote a book about it, which is Unlocking the STEAM Divas. And so I put
Yeah.
all of those things together. And so when I'm working with a company that's like still in demo mode or still have a prototype or something, we look at those five pillars, identify where it's weak. We give you ideas on like, okay, be aware of those things. Not because we want you to fix it right away, but more like it helps you with your planning. Like, you're aware
Right.
that I before we go to this next place, I need to make sure this is patched. And we're not only telling you what's wrong, we're also telling you how this is going to fail, and when it's going to fail over time. We have an engine that does the calculation for
Mm.
us. So we basically tell you it's going to cascade this way. Let's say, for example, you miss a measurement, manufacturing is going to miss it, and then it's going to go here, and by the time you get on the field, this way it's going to fail, and when it fails on the field, it's going to cost you more. So make sure by the time you get here, you've covered this
Right.
part. So we just identify your weak pillars, and we show you how to resolve it using
I,
your team.
sometimes I just think nowadays it seems like there's a whatever your need is, there is a product for it. Like it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
do you come across that a lot where it's just like you have a lot of people who just do you have to hurt feelings sometimes and go, this is a bad idea? Maybe that's what I want to ask because I'd
I
be like, only you need this. No one else needs this.
I personally don't believe there is anything like a bad idea, because sometimes people
Right.
are like, if I have to innovate something, it has to be unique. No, it doesn't have to be. If you think about it, the Apple and the Microsoft, there were two computers. Like, if Apple had said, well, I mean, Microsoft got this game. We're fine. We probably
True.
will never have Apple. But I think the key thing is like you find what exactly am I bringing that is unique to this product? And like that's the point where the creativity comes into play, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I am trying to get young girls into STEM, and there's a lot of STEM places, what is the unique thing that STEAM Divas is bringing to this spot that is unique? And that's where our arts combination comes into play. That's why our systems are slightly different. Are we different from other STEM programs? Not so much, but we have a unique group we're trying to reach out to. We have a unique thing that we're bringing to the market. So sometimes that's just like we're all different from our fingerprints, right? So
Right.
like the way our fingerprints are. So when you think about it, I might be looking at this stuff and I'll be like, oh, this is yellow, and you'll be like, oh, it's fuchsia. We all have different insights into it. So that
Yeah.
that uniqueness is our skills. I think that maybe what most people try to do, try to be like someone else rather than who they are. And
Mm.
because they're like, oh, I think Choma's stuff is booming. I'm gonna try to be like Choma. You're not me, right? So
Right.
be yourself. I can inspire you.
Yeah.
I can take something from what you're doing and add it to mine. But need to know who I am so that I can be like, oh, I don't need this. This doesn't work for me. This is kind of like my niche.
Yeah.
Sometimes uniqueness can be removing, uniqueness can be adding, but just
Yeah.
whatever it is that's uniquely you. So there's really no bad idea out there. It's
Yeah.
just like, are you making it your own? Are
Yeah.
you, and no
I
matter how
love
crazy
that.
you are, you have a crowd somewhere.
That's the truth, though. That is the truth. I mean, I just no, and not to say I agree. There are no bad ideas, but I just love that you it's kind of like, when sometimes when people come with something negative, you have to turn it around to something positive. I love that. And just like, yeah, I just love your perspective on that. And I know you mentioned your book. It's the Unlocking the Team Puzzle, correct?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? So you are an entrepreneur, you are an author, you are doing the thing. Just tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, thank you so much. I
Hmm.
I, I love to experience all parts of me because I am very well aware that I'm not going to be here forever. So if I feel like doing something, I just try it out, right? See how it
Yeah.
goes. And the book I came out of a fact that um I've been, leadership in various industry, and I've noticed that people burn out differently. Different things
Hmm.
burn people out, and I've been hearing, like the standard, oh, people need rest, people need whatever, right? And I've
Hmm.
and I've and I started studying that because I did one of the things when you're a manager, you don't want your team to burn out. That's kind of like always the
Right.
key thing they always tell you to try to resolve. And studying that, I recognize that people have different productivity personality.
Hmm.
It's not the same as one of those personality tests. No, it's not. It's like when it comes to building or producing something, what behavior do you take? And it varies from place to place. Like it varies on
Hmm.
product you're building, it varies where you are. And I recognize there are three productivity personality. There is the early starters, and those are the people who, if you come into and you say, hey, this is what we're going to do, they'll be like, yeah, that's good. We got it. Let's go, right? The early
Hmm.
starters. And then I recognize that there's also the deep divers. Those are the ones that be like, hey, wait a minute, before we start, building stuff, let's go into this and make sure we have clarity on what's in these books, right? And
Hmm.
then the final finishers, those are the ones that's like, we this is not how we usually do it. They're very slow to get to it,
Yeah.
but eventually, when they get there, they're the ones that take it to your clients. They're the ones that you're like your evangelists. They're the ones that stay longer, making sure the product is being evangelized well, and they are the ones that also take like lesson learned. They're the ones that you can go for historical data so you don't make the same mistakes again. And each one of these personalities is very important. They have their strengths, they have their weakness, and they all work together. So in this book, I just kind of like explained what the productivity personality is. And I'm going to come up with two more books, and I'm going to revise the first one where I'm going to
Okay.
explain like how you can manage those different personalities whenever people are expressing it, and how a company can have the right team built around those productivity personalities.
Okay, so is that like breaking news that you're announcing there's going to be two more books and you're revising them? You're
I,
revising. I love it though. Yeah, yeah. No, that's wonderful. I mean, I'm just thinking, even as you were talking about the different personalities, I was kind of seeing where I kind of fit in. I definitely would like to. I definitely should give that a read. Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like in marketing where you have the different types of buyers, right? You have like your early
Yes,
adapters, your late, like kind of
yes,
like that,
yes,
and where they fall along that
yes.
that kind of bell curve of your consumers
Right.
out there.
And here's
Yeah.
the thing, that's very important that you notice that you're really smart, is actually came from that. You know what I
Okay.
mean? It's the
Yeah.
whole marketing concept. But if,
Yeah.
but that no that same behavior translates in when you're pitching anything.
Yeah.
Because remember, marketing, you're selling an idea, you're selling
Yeah.
something to people. And so whenever you're trying to build anything, you're selling that to the people who are building it.
Yeah.
So if there are gonna be people who are gonna be your early adapters, and those are your early
Mhm.
starters. But in this context, when it comes to productivity, there are some productivity behaviors that affects, early starters. Like if I'm if it's something that I'm knowledgeable about, if it's something I'm comfortable with, I would definitely be an early starter,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah. Yeah.
expected.
Yeah. I want to jump in there in the beginning. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. And I would say, listen, wasn't always a science educator. I have a background in marketing, so that's why I was like, that sounds really familiar. But yeah. So,
So
so
now you see how being in arts and STEM can combine.
yes,
I'm telling you, you
perfect.
gotta combine the
Yeah,
whole thing.
you have to put them together because you're right. It takes both sides of the brain. You can't just
Yeah,
function on that one side.
yeah,
And yeah, because again, even just when you were thinking about the arts and the STEM, I'm just thinking about even in the marketing, like the packaging, the even, like what is it going to take
yeah.
to get somebody to walk by and go, oh, I want to buy that. So
Exactly.
that's that, you can have the STEM component, the putting together of the product,
Mm,
but then you also have to have that other side too, right?
the
Where you have
human
to get
interaction.
people. Right,
Yeah,
exactly, exactly. And so both sides are needed. Both
yeah,
sides are definitely needed. And that's encouraging me too, because even though we're a STEM organization, right? Including more of the arts.
yeah,
And just thinking about, and I think about even with students, it doesn't have to be anything like difficult. It can be going outside and drawing observations. We're sitting in nature, we're at a
yeah,
park. What do you see? Because kids nowadays like to draw. Um,
yeah.
they do. And it's those type of things that it doesn't, again, my goal is it doesn't have to be difficult or expensive. It's
Yes,
everyday practical, and
yes,
then you see it in your everyday life and
yeah,
doing it like that. So I love that. Yeah, yeah. See, we got that connection. We got that connection. So thinking about educators, what would you encourage educators to do to encourage, and to teach their students these skills that they need to be successful, not just in STEM, but also STEAM.
yeah.
What would you speak to say to educators?
Yeah, I think number one for me would be STEAM. You got to combine both.
Mm,
That you're not building you're not building for robots, you're building for humans. So the human
yeah,
aspect has all been trapped in arts anyway. So you have to
yeah,
pull that part, like you mentioned, like the whole packaging idea. How when you make things very modular, how are people going to accept it? What does it look
right.
like? I don't want my robot to be mean looking. Like those are actually skill sets that's been integrated now, and because they never really integrated them early. You see, they're gonna go get someone from a different field, and they feel completely lost within the STEM field. So right now, I mean, speaking of the future, I think we were looking at AI, if we're looking at robotics,
Yeah,
those things require human interaction. So we need to start improving that idea of making sure STEM is integrating all of the arts into it. I
yeah,
think another thing I like to tell people is one of the skill sets everybody needs to have an experience with is learning how to fail. I think a lot of
yes.
times a lot of people are so uncomfortable with failure, and that limits people. And the reason why I'm able to do so many things that looks like they don't even combine is because I'm not afraid of failing. I actually
Mm,
have a comfort level with it because I learn more within that period that I'm struggling to figure out what's wrong. And I think that when you are trying to get kids to be innovators, to stay within STEM fields, you have to get them comfortable with failing. There's nothing horribly wrong with
Nope.
failing. It's just, what do you do after you fail? If you stay put and say, "Oh, this is it," then you actually fail. But if you like learning, like, what was the mistake I make? How can I do better next time? Then you get better. Now, that's also something they can use in life, because I've
Yeah.
never seen anybody's life that is 100% awesome. There,
Absolutely not. I don't care what social media tells you
I
and shows you.
know, right?
Mm-mm.
I've never seen anybody who's always been right. And
Yeah.
so it's something that we all have to get confident with. So I think as a teacher, that's something, I feel like that's something we have to figure out, how to integrate that into a daily learning process. How do we put students in areas where they can fail, learn, and grow? Because I know in engineering, which usually was in a lab. So when
Yeah.
we do our project, we all start getting comfortable with filling our project. So you start seeing that engineers know subconsciously or consciously that it never works well the first time. You
Yeah.
never learn anything, right? So even that whole idea worked in the lab, you take it out to the world, it fails. So those are some
Right.
of the things that I feel practical. Those are practical things that is very easy to integrate with getting students to be prepared, not just in school but also in life. Because once we start getting to the idea where we're integrating arts, our human side, into STEM, then STEM becomes like a regular thing. I love the example you mentioned, that kids can go outside and look at things, and touch things.
Yeah.
I I've learned how to cross worlds. That's one thing I like to do. I like to connect worlds that don't connect. So I've learned how to cross world. And when I was learning a bit about spirituality, when people were talking about frequency and energy and things like
Yeah.
that, and I was like, wait a minute, this is physics. I know this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know the frequency. I know how frequency work. I know how this works. And so, like, like, even like I studied a thing about marketing, and I'm like, how would I integrate this into my work? And I was like,
Yeah.
well, this is productivity, personality. So just learning how to be out, like, just being, even being in nature, just being around things, just
Yeah.
learn how to make STEM a natural part of your life. I hate when people are like, oh, I don't know math, but that same person, when you tell them, oh, there's gonna be a discount, 80% sales at the store, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, wait, let me do 80 over 100 multiply.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, it's $2.
Right.
And you're like, I thought you said you don't know
Yeah.
math, right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
You know
because
about them paycheck and taxes.
I
That's that's
know.
that's that's math
and,
too, you
and it's
know?
like, it's $2.
Right.
That's not a good sale. And you start realizing that maybe the concept of, like, this is how you learn math, this is how you learn
Yeah.
something, is probably wrong. Like, I always tell people, I like, math is English written in short form, right? Because if I
Yes.
tell you one person plus one person, come stand here now, how many people are there? You be like, there are two
It's
people,
right.
right? But if I say one plus one, you'd be like, wait, let me think. One plus one, you know what I
Ooh,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
if you
yeah.
think about it, it's like, math is just English written in short form.
Yeah. Oh, I
People
love
don't
it.
think about it like that, but it's true.
No, I
I mean,
mean,
that's,
but it makes sense, right? It does make sense
yeah,
if you put it in that way. You are more
yeah,
likely to easier say to people instead of going, like you said, it's kind of like it's
yeah,
like you gave them the visual, especially if it's like you're a visual learner, you
yeah,
gave them the visual to put the
exactly.
picture together to help them
Yeah,
understand it and process it better. So
yeah.
and I think I love that fail, learn, and grow. I think you know, listening to your response, a lot of educators are, you know, clapping and will be clapping because, you know, unfortunately, we kind of are in this space now where, you know, students don't know what it's like to fail. You know, they're given, and I'm not saying this is anything wrong with it, but when you're given multiple opportunities and you don't understand the reasoning behind the given the multiple opportunities or
Hmm.
really putting forth the effort to learn from the failure,
Hmm.
um, it's kind of challenging. I tell kids all the time, it's okay to fail. I do every time, every
Hmm.
day. And again, that's how you learn. I mean, if you know,
Hmm.
I said, you know, even the basketball players, they're not going out, your football or whoever you look up to, they're not going out
Yeah.
and the first time getting it right. So
Hmm.
that failure is something that we have to learn to
Yeah.
live with, as you said. And unfortunately, I think in some spaces we don't get it, our students don't get enough of that.
Yeah.
They don't, they may, I've had students before, they earn a bad grade and then they just want to shut down. And you're like,
Yeah.
no, why? I understand you're thinking my parents are going to kill me. I
Yeah.
studied for this, but guess what? Just take what figure it out and then
Mm-hmm.
try again. And so, and,
Yeah.
and that's the model. And like you said, that's just not a STEM or a STEAM thing. That's like you said, a life skill that
Yeah.
we all have to learn from. So I would agree with that. So,
Thank you.
moving from the teachers to the students, what advice would you give young middle school, high school, even maybe some elementary school, this young girls in general, who are interested in maybe pursuing STEM, but they don't know where to begin? What would you tell them?
Wow. I want them to know that they can make STEM their own. STEM does not require you following a particular step. If you're curious, if you're passionate about something, just figure out how to make it work. I created a YouTube channel which is part of Steam Diva. We have Robot Diva, and the idea is to use storytelling to teach about robotics. And there's a
Hmm.
lot of correlations between what we do in robotics and how it continue connects with the world and
Right.
things like that. And I think that I we don't we none of us know, and this is like for young students coming up. None of us know what the future is that you guys are gonna live in is gonna be like. And so we're not the standards that you're supposed to emulate in the sense that, oh,
Hmm.
I'm gonna be an electrical engineer like me. What I would like for you to learn is to figure out how can I connect the worlds? How can I take one knowledge that I learn here and connect it to the world that I meet that I'm in? So if you're a young student and you're passionate about STEM, there are a lot of tools online that you can use to learn STEM. Find somebody that can mentor you. If you don't know how to find somebody, connect with me on STEAM Divas. We connect students to other mentors. Um, Also, practice, build something so you can fail at it.
Yeah.
If you want to be a doctor, and
Hmm.
chemistry is something you're going to learn, experiment with some chemistry stuff, something cheap, orange or whatever, have it fill, get a better understanding of maybe I put too much acid here, maybe a little less acid, stuff like that.
Hmm.
So you can start getting an idea of what you're actually doing. For me, I'm a hands-on learner. I have to do touch the stuff. And I think that, some people are visual. So if you figure out how you learn, there's nothing wrong with that. I know some
Yeah.
people are like, oh, you're not a real reader if you're using Kindle or Audible. I don't believe that because my brain keeps this knowledge the same
Yep.
way. So find what works for you, but chase what you're passionate about. Don't want to be an electrical engineer like me. You can be a makeup artist that finds the way that we can swap our faces with your
Yep.
technology. Who knows what the future is gonna be? Like,
Yeah.
just be passionate about that which you're passionate about, but don't try to squeeze it into anybody's box. Don't try to squeeze it into my box because you're trying to be like me. Don't try to squeeze it into Dr. West's box because you're trying to be like her. Put it
Yeah.
into whatever shape and form you like. And once again, be willing to fail. Try something new. If you try something, it doesn't work out, try something new, but keep your passion.
Yeah.
If you're passionate about building houses, keep that. You can start with Legos, you can start with something else. Like, don't let anybody define what STEM or STEAM is
Yeah.
supposed to be for you. You can make it your own way. Who knows, in the future AI might be an electrical engineer and you guys can be building something different, right?
Hmm.
So just chase your passion.
Yeah. The little girl in me is so encouraged by what you said because when I was a student, those weren't conversations that were had, right? You didn't necessarily have that type of encouragement to build your own path. And so to
Mhm.
hear you share that with young ladies who may be listening, it really means a lot because it is something that I think to myself, I wish I would have had that kind of encouragement. And that's something that we need to keep encouraging our young people to understand is that you have the power to choose your own path. and don't
That's
let
true.
anybody stop you and tell you otherwise, right?
That's true.
So what's next for Steam Divas? What are y'all doing next? Any fun activities? Any you going anywhere? What are you doing that is going to continue to move the movement of encouraging young ladies to go into to pursue STEM?
Well, Steam Diva is going global
Yay!
because we realize that just being in town is not really reaching as much people as we want to reach. So we are going to be doing more of what we're doing online as opposed to in person. So there will be a lot of online events and we'll
Hmm.
provide the tools for you to purchase, have it at home so you can follow us through the experiment. So it will be more like you're in with us and you can ask us questions and we're there with you. So Steam Diva is leaning heavily into more of an online stuff. We want to be able to reach children in Africa. I know we just talked about Ghana,
Yeah.
want to reach children here in the States and in remote locations. And we're hoping that eventually we'll be able to provide those tools to the students and maybe ship you the tools and you can get what you need. But
Yeah.
right now we're starting out small, so we're gonna be doing things with what you have at home, right? All our
Yeah.
experiments will be what you can easily have access to. All you need is an internet and a computer. And our first one is gonna be happening soon. It's similar to the event that we call Vibecraft that we did in house.
Hmm.
Basically, is we taught the students how to train AI to have to recognize emotions,
Oh, wow.
and so they know, and they do this emotion by saying nice words and mean words. And then we took that learning and wrote a story using an LLM interface to
Hmm.
create a story around mean words and kind words. And so we're gonna have work do the same thing in your house. We give you access to all of the software and have you run through the process with us. And we'll be online answering questions, and you can meet other friends that are interested in STEM the way you're
Hmm.
interested in STEM. And we're
Yep.
hoping that at the end of this, we'll have more writers out there globally using these AI tools, understanding the power of our words, because that's the key thing
Hmm.
we're trying to teach, that the words matter, that even AI can know that. What about you? What you tell yourself,
Right.
what you tell other people, and that's going to be what something that's coming up real soon. I'm not sure of the time yet, but it's going to be happening real soon.
Listen, no, and we're doing something similar too. So, and that's what I just love. This world is big enough and it's space for all of us
Yes,
to reach as many students as possible,
yes.
and inspire as many young people as possible. So I love that. Congratulations to you for going
Thank
global.
you.
I
Thank
definitely,
you.
yeah, maybe we can work together on something in the future soon
Yes,
too. So that would
yes.
be, yeah, that would be great because yeah, we're looking to move into that space also because that's the power of technology, right? And it's
Yes.
right there in your hands.
Yes.
I like you what you're saying too, things you can use at home. I'm very big on that. I'm
Hmm.
very big on that's what you got. You got some old toilet paper and paper towel
Yeah,
rolls, something
exactly.
like that. We can use that. So,
Yes.
just one last question for you before, and I don't, I've so enjoyed speaking with you. I'm a talker, so I can go on all day, but I have to stop myself. If you could leave our listeners with one message about the future of STEM, STEM education and innovation, what would it be?
Oh, that's a really tough question. Oh,
Oh
just one
no, oh
message.
no.
I,
Just
I,
give us, I'll give you, you can do more than one. You can do more than one.
I would say that one of the, I think is pretty much the key thing that I'm repeating right now. Create your own path. We are in the middle of a new revolution, our industrial revolution. No one knows what's going on. We're not sure how we're going to use AI. We're not sure how AI is going to work. We are not certain about anything, which is great because if you're someone who is open to creating your own part, building something that is
Yeah.
uniquely you, then this is a brand new opportunity. No one is going to tell you, hey, this is how we've always done it. You will be right. So
Yeah.
at this point, that one thing I would say is that even as educators, you want to create your own path. Each one of your students is unique. So you create what you can for each student uniquely. You know,
Mhm.
if you can figure out how to take what the expectations they have for you and make it unique for the student, please do that.
Yeah.
One day we can all be copying you, be like, oh yeah, maybe this is the best way to do it, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then if you're an innovator, there is no wrong idea right now. I mean, at this point in time, you can try whatever, you know,
Mhm.
just so go ahead and create your own path in your innovation. And if you're a student and you're like, yeah, I want to be able to, do my writing, while at the same time I want to still be, and you don't have to pick one. You can do both. I'm an author. I'm also an engineer, and I have run a nonprofit that I do makeup and hair. So just think about the possibilities for you all that's coming into this new revolution. It's endless. Don't worry about what people are saying about, oh, AI is going to take our jobs. AI is still learning. You guys are the future. You have a unique perspective nobody else in this world has. So what I'm going to tell you is build your own thing. Create your own path.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the best takeaway. Create your own path. Because you're right. This is the time to do that. With so much
Mm,
innovation and new things coming online, definitely create your own path. Is yeah, that's a powerful word right there. I
thank
appreciate you.
you.
And I can't thank you again, Chioma, for being here, for sharing your wisdom and your expertise with us. How can our listeners connect with you?
Oh, this is great. So I'm online. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Steam Divas. Personally, I'm on LinkedIn. Steam Divas is on LinkedIn. Steam Divas is on Instagram. Steam Divas is on Twitter. But I think of our favorite place where we like people to connect with us is on our website, steamdivas.org. Just reach out to me anytime. You have questions, you want to be a mentor, you want to be a volunteer, you can volunteer with us online with all our online global stuff. Please sign up. Your parents, you have a child that is not a girl, you can sign up as a parent and use some of the tools we provide for you. You're a student and you want to sign up. So we have all of that on our website, steamdivas.org. That's the best
Okay.
way to reach me. But definitely I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, that's awesome. You can see some of the things I post. If you follow our Steam Divas page on LinkedIn, yes, definitely you can learn so much more from us.
Okay. And then where can we get your book? Where can, is your book
My
also
book
on the
is
website?
my
Okay.
book is on Amazon. You can go to
Okay.
my author's page, which is my first name and my last name, Chioma Aso dot com .com. Definitely you can find the link to Amazon. My book is only on Amazon for now. Definitely waiting to release book 2 and 3 and the revised book 1, and then we're gonna put it on different media.
Okay, I see. I didn't want to leave out the book. I didn't want, because I think that has some valuable information, especially if you're like you said, working with teams. So,
Yes.
I don't know about you. I don't want this conversation to end, but this is the end of this episode of the Perspectives in STEM podcast. A huge thank you again, Chioma, for sharing with us
Thank you for
today.
having me.
And so to our listeners, if this conversation sparked something in you, I know it did. You can't tell me it didn't because it did in me. Do me a favor. Please subscribe, share this episode with a teacher, a student, a STEM professional, an artist, anybody in the arts, anybody really, who needs to hear this powerful message and information that Choma just shared with us today. And please be sure to leave us a comment. And be sure to subscribe so you can get future inspirational episodes just like this one. So remember, every child deserves the chance to explore STEM and STEAM. If you'd like to be a part of that mission, please visit us online at teachthemglobal.org to learn more, to volunteer, or to donate. I am Dr. Kimberly West, and until next time, I'm going to always encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep building a brighter future because we genuinely and truly believe that STEM is for all everywhere. Thank you again, Choma. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me.